to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We didn't jump ahead of the board, did we?
You're quick. I didn't even wink. Meeting's called to order. Public comment. Anyone would like to make a public comment? And there's no public in the room, no public online. Okay, item 3 on our agenda, approval of minutes. The action item.
Move for acceptance.
Okay, second, yay and yay. Minutes are approved. New business. Federal legislative update, Mr. Minkler. Get your points. I'll give my legislative update.
Even better.
First, I'm headed out to the DC conference. December 27th, 28th, and 29th as a member of the Aqua Federal Affairs Committee. We actually get a discount on the rate, like $150 off discount for the Federal Affairs Committee. And then there's one special meeting that we go to that everyone else at the committee doesn't get an opportunity to attend. That's
we.
just me as far as from CCWD,
No.
the Federal Affairs Committee. Oh, it's the Aqua DC conference.
I saw that. I heard that. You said you go to a special meeting.
Oh, just
Who's we that goes to the
the
special
members of the Federal Affairs Committee. Yeah, I think there's like 80 or so members of that committee. It's a standing invite only committee, each region. But yeah, it's pretty serious too. You get kicked off of it if you have more than one excused absence more than 2 excused absence in a row. So you got to get an excused absence if you can't make a meeting. They meet 4 times a year. And this won't be one of the official meetings, but they put this on. The agenda's out. It's half day on the 27th, full day on the 28th of Wednesday, and then half day on Thursday, the 29th.
Should be interesting.
Yeah,
Fine.
a lot going on, I think. And for us as well, a lot of stuff in water. That's my federal legislative update. On to you, Mr. Minkler.
Yeah, hopefully you'll have some other updates for us when you get back, or could solve some of these problems. So reporting from MIA, Congress is closing in on trying to complete the fiscal year 24 appropriations process. Short-term funding measure that is in place for the Corps of Engineers, which is our primary concern, runs through March 1st. The House and Senate Appropriation Committee leaderships have agreed to a top line number for overall funding levels and for how much each of the 12 appropriations bills will be allocated. So at this point, it's the House and Senate subcommittees that are negotiating the details of the final bills. So they have overall funding levels, but they're still working on the details of the 12 appropriations bills. Would be nice.
What's the scope of the details? Is it just the amount, or is it the?
No, the
scope,
total,
or-
so the total dollar amount of the funding
That's set.
packages are set. It's just hashing out within that how much goes to which line item.
And by line item, it's not projects, it's not earmarks, it's.
There are earmarks,
Oh,
and ours is one of them. And so there's some of that, but program level funding as well.
Ours is only earmark in the Senate, right?
It was, yeah, the funding request was put in through Senator Feinstein's office.
Right, okay.
So we're working with our Senate offices on that funding level. The Army Corps supported our request for $11.2 million earmark in the Senate Energy and Water Development appropriations bill. There's so there, we're still, I think the biggest challenge there is working with the Corps to make sure we have a path to be able to utilize that funding in this fiscal year. And that has become incredibly difficult. So our project process, was slowed down last year. Well, stopped last year by the Corps when the Corps changed the rules of the program on us back in March. We were told initially by them it would be restarted by, I think it was midsummer of 23, and then it didn't, but they didn't finish the approvals that they needed to do for us until December. So our project was essentially on hold for 9 months, more than 9 months. Now that we've restarted it and we've been pushing the Corps to move it forward as quickly as possible, the bureaucratic process of navigating a project design and approval through the Corps is going to slow the project down a lot. So we're hoping for project approval, but it won't, in order to get the project out to bid by early 25, but it's not going to happen in fiscal year 24. So that's the question right now, is just having that discussion with Mia and with legislative staff about the timing of that request, and how we keep the project moving forward, and making sure we have the appropriate funding level appropriated, because that's the other part, is if we don't have the appropriation, the Corps won't work on the project. But the Corps also doesn't want to work on the project if we can't spend the money in that fiscal year. So it's a little bit of a catch-22 there. And then also the environmental review, the level of environmental review has become a sticking point as well. So we were previously kind of proceeding under the hope and the assumption that the replacement of the tertiary filter would be, as it is exempt from CEQA, that there be an applicable categorical exclusion from NEPA, since it's a replacement of an existing facility. And the Corps does not, so NEPA is different than CEQA. In NEPA, the categorical exclusions are adopted by each agency that they use for their own projects. Whereas in CEQA, the categorical exemptions are applicable to any project, any lead agency can use them. There is legislation that allows federal agencies to use categorical exclusions that have been adopted by other federal agencies. And so we identified the Corps doesn't have any that would apply, which is surprising considering the amount of construction they do. But we found one that the EPA has that's directly applicable to the replacement of a wastewater infrastructure. And so we're just in negotiation with the Corps to see if we can convince them to apply that categorical exclusion. And the initial feedback we got was, well, we've never done this before, and so we think it would take just as long as doing a full environmental assessment and FONSI finding a no significant impact, which is pretty frustrating when you're just trying to replace an existing piece of infrastructure on a very similar footprint. So no money is cheap, even free money. And so that's kind of what we're working through right now, to just see if we can push the Corps to expedite their timeline, so that we meet their own criteria of trying to expend the funds within the current fiscal year.
So you say replace an existing structure. The dam raise is also part of the project now.
Yeah. So, but what we're pursuing right now is actually separating those two out, and prioritizing the tertiary filter for multiple reasons. One is because it should be a more straightforward and faster design and environmental review process. And then the other is it's on its last leg. So just operational need. We really need to address that tertiary filter.
What's
the dam raise would come next.
What's the consequences of separating it out? Is it possible that the Corps or Congress would separate it out also and only approve the first part of it? Is that something that we're trying to avoid, which I thought was putting the whole project together was for that purpose?
Yeah, it would be nice if we could proceed that way. It's just that the design and environmental review for the dam raise is going to take longer. And so that's what we're talking to Mia about right now is, well, should we actually decrease the size of the request for this fiscal year to right size it just for the tertiary filter replacement, and then go back, continue to, because we also have the WRDA request to increase the total amount of the authorization by another $3 million. So continue on that effort.
And that's from the 11 to 14 or,
It would go
close
from
to.
13 to 16.
okay, wow.
And then, so continue that effort to increase the total authorization amount and focus the funding amount, the appropriations amount for this fiscal year on the wastewater, the tertiary filter replacement. So we're still trying to, we just got that response from the Corps yesterday on the environmental review process, but it's one of those things that we're not necessarily going to take no for an answer just yet. We want to push them on a little bit more and see. I mean, if it's true that it won't be any faster, then it may not be worth it to carve out a new path for them and force them to try to do something new, which is already the case with the whole Section 219 program. But it just seems ridiculous to have to do an environmental assessment for the replacement of an existing facility. It defies common sense.
Same footprint and everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
So multiple efforts on that front, and sorry. Yeah, so we're just working really closely with Mia on that, meeting weekly with the Corps. We've had some help from Matt and his partners on that in helping us identify that pathway for a categorical exclusion. But it's been frustrating. So we'll keep at it.
Okay. What else does Mia have on her federal legislative update? I want to hear some meat on what's going on in DC.
I know. She's the one with the inside baseball. So I touched on WRDA already. We're still working on that. The only other updates that I have that are independent of her report are we did a letter of support for Senator Padilla's effort to create or expand the LIWAP program, so Low Income Ratepayer Assistance Program, that Senator Padilla asked for support for. We do, I think I've been coordinating with Director Ratterman on this, that they were asking for the support by a particular day. And we felt comfortable based on the board and the district's past positions on this, that we were okay, sending in the letter of support, and also offering some recommendations on how, because we do overall support the intent of the legislation, but we've been talking to mountain counties and then the Region 3 agencies within Aqua about ways that we think it could be improved. So we sent in a letter of support along with some suggestions. And so we're hoping that they'll, that'll be well received by the senator's office, and they'll open the door for those discussions as it moves forward. The main ones for us being, because LIWAP was great. It was the program that allowed past due, so customers that had past due balances that qualified as low income could get essentially one-time funding to resolve the past due balance and then move forward. But it was underfunded, and it was only a one-time assistance program, and it was only available to people that had delinquent balances.
Who administered that for us?
ATCA.
Okay.
Which actually, that's one of the things we commented on. That worked well. We thought ATCA did, we had a good collaboration with ATCA on that.
That was a federal grant though?
Yes, LIWAP is a federal program.
What is it?
Low income household water assistance program, LIWAP. It's based off of a similar federal program that was available to energy bills that was mainly used on the East Coast. for like heating oil assistance. And they created LIWAP that was kind of modeled off of LIHEAP, I think was the other.
But that was a one-time funding, and do you know if that's?
It was one-time funding and it's gone.
expired?
Yeah, the funding ran out. It ran out and then they found some more funding or reallocated some funding and reopened it again. And so ACCA had, told us, I think it was in the fall, that the funding's out and then it reopened again. And so we, made sure our customers were aware of it. And then that funding is gone again. So it's currently not available, if I remember correctly.
Is that's different than our rate assistance program?
So that's different than our customer assistance program, and it's different than the low income ratepayer assistance program that the state was offering for during COVID.
But ACCA does all three of those?
ACCA was not involved in the state's low income ratepayer assistance program, and it does not administer our customer assistance program. But it does administer this
Who does?
LIWAP program.
The county here, or somebody in the county, or
For what?
our rate assistance program?
We administer that.
Really?
We don't do income verification, so we rely on the customer has to demonstrate low income status or eligibility by either being enrolled in PG&E's Lifeline program or eligible for resource connection services, I think are the criteria that we use, because we don't ever want to be in the business of income verification. But so we have those criteria established, but once the customer can meet those criteria, as long as there's space in the program, which there is currently, then they qualify for our customer assistance program. So we administer that.
Is that efficient? Are there other agencies like ACCA that could do that for us?
I think that's actually pretty efficient. I would, we could ask that question of Kelly Richards if there's a better way to do it. I think for that program, it's actually, that actually works pretty well because we're not having to do the income verification. It's, the process is pretty well established. It might be harder for that one to bring in a third party, but for the state's program, that was very difficult.
That's not going on anymore, right? That's what
It's
you did
not, actually, they did reopen
Can we just give us
another
11
round of funding for
$11,000?
wastewater, but,
$15,000.
but it's not something that was that we felt like was going to be beneficial for our customers. We did get through the state. So from LIWAP, I think we were able to connect our customers with somewhere around $55,000 in assistance. If I remember correctly, I can get the specific numbers for you, but somewhere in the neighborhood of $55,000 of ratepayer assistance. And then through the state program a couple of years ago, we were able to connect our customers with about $150,000 in ratepayer assistance.
Is our program, has it been fully subscribed?
No, ours is still pretty significantly undersubscribed this year for the first time. Usually we have a waiting list. It's usually oversubscribed.
Let's talk about that for a second. Is that because of arrearages? I know people aren't allowed to join our program if they're behind. Do we know if that's why it's not fully?
That's a good question. I don't know if that's one of the contributing factors or not. I know we've done multiple outreach efforts to let people know there's still space in this program.
Can we make that?
You were telling me that you did a post on it a couple months ago and it got a ton of attention. People were forwarding it and liking it and, spreading the news.
Nobody
but
did the work to apply for it.
But we didn't get any.
That's why I'm wondering if there's, another agency that already has a pool of folks that might be able to administer it. If they've got current customers that they know that are low income, they can offer them several different ways. I'm curious.
Oh, well, we do at least, we do try to make people aware of the program through those resources. Yeah. So Resource Connection, ACCA, the county, anybody that is interacting with people that need assistance, we do try to coordinate with them and make sure that they're aware of the program so they can direct them to that. But I think for that one, administering that program it's not a big burden on staff. It's already.
Maybe we can get an update on that because I'd like to see how we're alerting these other agencies, because we took some criticism for that, for hiding those programs.
Future agenda item on a regular board meeting.
Yeah, I think actually we just reported out on it recently to the External Relations Committee meeting, so we can bring that to the full board if you'd like.
Right, now just a quick update from Kelly on where it's at and what's whole, why they're not full, why she thinks they're not full. And if she's talking to people that, and it's because of arrearages, maybe, maybe I don't know, maybe we talk about it.
Let's do it. And because one of the other things that we've kicked around and internally is just whether we should make that funding available to the customers that are enrolled in the program and increase the benefit during this fiscal year, at least. We budgeted an amount, it's a small amount, but we budgeted that amount
Say it again.
for customer assistance. So if the program has a smaller number of people in it and we're, approaching the end of the fiscal year, we
Oh.
can increase the benefit for those
Oh,
people.
yeah.
They're only allowed to use it once every so often, right?
No, they can re-enroll as long
Yeah,
as there's
every year they-
availability.
Every year, but they can't do it every month.
Right, they have to re-enroll every year.
So there is a different, so it isn't a monthly benefit. It's
So
a
you're
one-time monthly benefit, then they can enroll the next year, but,
No,
Every-
no,
every
it's a
single-
monthly benefit. It's
every
a
month.
monthly reduction in their bill.
oh, is it?
Yeah, once they
The
are
bill-
enrolled for the year, their bill goes down for the entire year.
So what you're saying is we already have that budgeted and then we don't spend it because there's not a waiting list and it's not full. So increase the benefit as it gets towards the end of the year
For the people that are on the list.
for the people that are already there,
Be a
give them a
significant
bigger chunk.
discount.
Okay.
Exactly.
No, that's awesome. That's a great idea. We'd have
Okay.
to rewrite the,
We would need a policy
Program.
change for that. It's something we've talked about internally, though. Staff have already talked about that, so.
well, that's a great idea. I'd like to throw that around and see what else we can come up with. And
Well, I'd certainly, we need to find out when the year is over. And, if we can make one last ditch effort to the more people on it, probably the better, but if,
We could do both. I mean, it'll come in under budget already at this point, so.
it isn't like we're gonna lose the funding. The funding's there.
no,
If
Right.
it rolls over, it's not the end of the world. We just gotta work on our market.
So we'll bring that back to the full board, because we've also talked about other ways to increase the budget for that program, not without impacting the rest of the CCWD budget, other ways to, find some funding for it, whether it's a voluntary donation on the bill or, fundraisers. So we can bring that whole discussion item to the full board. Okay, so that was but we did, getting back to the point, we did support Senator Padilla's effort on that front. And hopefully they'll be open to discussing some changes to the program. And then we'll continue having those discussions. There's not a lot of discussion going on at the state level on that front, and I think there should be. But that's something that we talked about in the Region 3 board meeting yesterday. Offering some recommendations on that front. But we made the point in the support letter to Senator Padilla's office, and every time I talk about this in whichever organization we're in, I always make the point that the best thing you can do is more infrastructure funding, because that helps all of our customers. And so for federal and state agencies to provide us with direct assistance for infrastructure funding helps all customers. But yeah, then there's also a need to address direct assistance for low income ratepayers. So that tends to be the mantra that I repeat over and over again. The other one that we're working on a letter of support for is for Congressman Garamindi's bill on the biomass, making biomass fuel.
Has he actually submitted that?
He's resubmitting it. He had submitted it previously.
With the, have we checked the current language?
Yeah, it's this, the language hasn't changed, and they haven't even released a new fact sheet on it yet. So we're still kind of relying on the materials we had seen previously. But I think the language is going to go back in the same, and he found a co-sponsor, a companion in the Senate. I think it was Senator King. And so we're drafting an offer or a letter of support for that one as well.
Are we also sending it out to all the other upcountry agencies. for-
Yep, so that was the next point I was gonna make, is make sure I raised that in the Region 3 board meeting yesterday, but I think I'll bring it to the Headwaters work group in Aqua as well. And I'll send it over to Justin at Mountain Counties, and try to spread the word on that one, because it'd be great. Little additional, probably won't, it's not gonna be the catalyst for a whole bunch of new, community scale biomass plants, but it'll help. And as we know,
No, it's gotta economically make them more viable.
in our experience, with our project in West Point, they're barely able to make it pencil. And so every little bit that, you can add little bit of additional revenue, could make a big difference for these projects. So we'll spread the word on that one for sure.
Good.
I think that was it. Oh, the only other federal update is Aqua has hired a replacement for Dave Reynolds. And I'm blanking on his name right. Ian. Dave. It's not Ian Hart from Garamendi's office, but it is an Ian. But he looks very well qualified. I've never met him before, but all indications from Aqua staff is they're very excited about him joining, and he will be, Scott, at the Aqua DC conference later this month. I think he starts this month.
Yeah, he hadn't started, he wasn't part of the Federal Affairs committee when we had our meeting, but he will be starting, and we do expect to see him, and I can't remember his last name. Ian, that's good enough.
So that's it on the federal side. On the state side, of interest to this committee might be, there's not a ton. I mean, we're still very early in the legislative session. So we haven't seen any hugely impactful bills drop yet. Pretty light agendas at state legislative committee for now. That will probably change next month. There's a small bill, but one of note for committees is some potential relaxing of Brown Act rules for committees, not for the legislative governing body, but for subsidiary bodies, they call it. So
Like this?
yeah, I think it would give us some more of the virtual meeting flexibility that we enjoyed before. There's also a bill that Aqua's considering sponsoring that would create an exhaustion of administrative remedies requirement for Prop 218 challenges. And so a couple years ago, the statute of limitations was added to Prop 218 challenges. So now there's 120-day statute of limitations for rate increases, which is a huge benefit for water districts. We're now, it used to be you were never safe. And it could be years after you adopted a rate increase, you get sued. And if you lose, you have to refund the rates that you'd collected for years. So just this huge risk that hung over water agencies, and now that risk expires.
Forest Meadows rule, right? Was it Forest Meadows or Georgetown Divide?
I think it was
Not Forest Meadows.
EID.
No,
Forest Hill.
Forest Hill.
Yeah, Forest Hill, and EID kind of championed it, I think, on their behalf. And so that passed a couple of years ago, and we're the beneficiaries of it right now. We've passed that 120-day statute of
We have
limitations.
passed it?
Yeah.
We haven't heard from Matt?
No, believe me, we were checking that whole week.
Okay.
So that passed on, I think it was January 11th. And so, that's a huge benefit for
I
us.
knew that was coming up. I didn't know that it already had. passed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this new bill would
Winning.
yeah.
More winning.
Right. Sorry, I have kind of a scratchy throat today. So this new bill would add an exhaustion of remedies requirement. The exhaustion requirement, you're probably familiar with it from CEQA. When the board has to adopt and certify an environmental impact report or any environmental document that's gone public, you can't sue to challenge that document once it's been approved if you didn't raise your objections to it prior to the board's adoption. And so you have to specifically object to certain issues. And so there's the parties that challenge that bring the challenge have to have objected, and they have to have objected, or any party at least has to have objected on that issue that they're raising in a lawsuit. So there's issue exhaustion and party exhaustion. And so taking those principles from environmental and other areas of administrative law and applying those to Prop 218, I think is another very good idea. It just forces people.
Yeah, no, it makes you have the discussion ahead of time.
Right.
You know?
Right. So raise those if you're going to, raise those issues in advance so that the board that's adopting that's taking that action has the opportunity to consider it.
Sure.
and possibly change. And then if the board doesn't, then you're eligible to sue on that item after the approval. So that's something I think we would be supportive of as well. So we'll see how that bill progresses. The really big items that everybody's kind of waiting to see what will happen in the water world this year. Obviously the state budget is not in good shape. I'm sure you've all heard, we're at $58 billion deficit, I think now is the latest number I heard. And that is impacting water agencies already. The availability of grant funds is drying up. And, so we'll see increased competition for grant funds and decreased availability of services and funding. So
And an increase in their fee structure, most likely.
and probably see fees go up, right?
Yeah.
And then so that's a big concern. But at the same time, there's still a lot of talk about a bond for this year. So for the November 24 ballot, I think Scott, I think you were at the legislative symposium last year when the polling data suggested support for a statewide bond of over $15 billion. I think that they're sharpening the pencil on that now, considering the state's budget issues. So probably I would expect to see something lower than that, but I think we're still anticipating seeing a bond on the ballot this year.
And isn't it going to be called referencing more climate?
Something along the lines of climate change, drought resilience, and wildfire reduction bond. Because those are the things that
Nice to have words.
those are the words that voters like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard, schools are also going to get a big money this year, most likely have a school bond through the state.
What do they need money for?
Yeah, I know.
Jeez. No.
Public schools. Who goes there anyway?
Right. So
think
there'll be
all
a
that-
lot of discussions, especially if the size of the bond decreases. There's already been a lot of horse trading over what's in it. And so, we're going to continue to join our voice with Region 3 and mountain counties on prioritizing, allocating funds for rural agencies, in particular headwaters agencies. There's limited to, so we are the only ones that have access to it. So we don't lose out the way we did in the last bond. And also, creating some more flexibility in those funding programs so that we have the ability to use those funds for the replacement of infrastructure. Often it's limited to, those programs are limited to where we can't. So we were strategizing about that again yesterday in the Region 3 board call. And I think that's going to be a big part of our work effort this year in that, for that board. So the bond, the budget, and water rights. I think we're all just kind of waiting for the water rights reform effort to come back like, they did last year. It's a hugely divisive issue. It's got Aqua members pitted against each other in some ways. So it'll be very interesting to see Aqua handles it. I can tell you in the state legislative committee, there's an effort underway right now to draft guidelines for, because it's always, Aqua has a longstanding position or policy that it won't take position on bills where members are opposed on either side of the bill. But it's never been very clear how that policy is implemented, and there's no clear criteria on when, because it happens all the time where, Aqua will take a position on something and then you have water agencies that are advocating for a different position. You're not always aligned with Aqua.
Well, case in point was the prevailing wages on forest.
Perfect
management.
example. Yeah. And so that one wouldn't rise to the level for two different reasons. One was because, it was a big impact for forest management efforts, but not in terms of, it didn't create, it wasn't a big issue in terms of the kind of foundational water issues, right?
Oh.
Like water rights,
No.
things that are going to really impact a lot of agencies and potentially set really bad precedent. That's typically the criteria that Aqua uses. But the other thing on that one was Aqua wasn't in support of that bill. Our frustration with Aqua was they moved off of opposing it to a watch position. So they just took no position.
Union pressure, too much union pressure.
What's that?
They've had the union pressure.
Yeah.
Right. So they had political calculations to make, and they moved to a watch position instead of opposing it. We still actively opposed it, both as an agency, but through mountain counties and other groups. We had a broad coalition opposing that bill. Unfortunately, it passed this time. The situations they're talking about, though, are situations that really would have a significant impact on the water industry, and Aqua's, taking a support position, and you have a bunch of members that are taking an opposed position. So they're on polar opposite sides of a really controversial topic. It's not just a watch or a difference of opinion on strategy or, how opposed or supportive they should be. It's just completely opposite positions on a really controversial topic. That could very well be the case when it comes to this water rights reform effort. You have, a handful of Aqua member agencies that just have zero tolerance for any state board jurisdiction over pre-14 water rights, and they are inflexible on that. And you have a lot of other agencies saying, well, the water board's going to regulate it one way or another. Let's try to be involved in the shaping how that regulation is going to be drafted and implemented, rather than just continue to try to say no all the time. And that could be an issue where it could either really create some deep divisions among Aqua member agencies.
It's unconstitutional, and they can't, eventually it'll end up the Supreme Court over takings.
Well, takings, though, doesn't mean they can't do it. Takings just means you have
Well, they
to be
gotta pay for it.
compensated for it.
Yeah.
Right.
How are they gonna do that? I mean, I just, shit. State's broke as it is.
Right.
I mean,
so it's going to be a really divisive issue, and it would be interesting to me. It also just seems odd that Aqua would be in a position where it's not taking a position on that, because of how impactful it is. And so you would just basically, Aqua would be silent on that issue, which could be one of the most impactful issues to, for the water industry in a long time.
well, there's gotta be winners and losers in that scenario, and the losers are the upcountry water right holders, and the winners are
Well, there's
urban areas.
There's differences of opinion on that, though, because you definitely have some upcountry pre-14 water rights holders saying, we're fine with them regulating it because we'd rather have certainty. We'd rather, instead of like what happened 2 years ago with the curtailments, and we didn't know until a month before the curtailments hit, that all of a sudden all the pre-14 water rights were curtailed. And so you have a lot of upcountry agencies, even pre-14 rights holders, saying, we'd rather know what the process is and what the criteria is going to be, and have an opportunity for an appeal or have an opportunity to carve out some exceptions. Let's create a program that gives us all some certainty, instead of just digging in and saying no to any sort of regulation of pre-14 water rights. And, so you definitely have pre-14 agencies on both sides of this. and, you know, it's not necessarily just urban.
I think it's wishful
rural.
thinking.
But it's going to be a very interesting, intense debate. That's for sure. Anytime you touch the water rights, it will be. That's one certainty that we have.
Yeah.
So those are the biggest items I had for on the state side. One good piece of news, CSDA is honoring Senator Alvarado Gil as the legislator of the year, which I think is well deserved, and it's great that she's getting that recognition from CSDA. So
I will be there on behalf of Mountain Counties and CCWD to honor her and EID. When is that? Next week?
I think so. Yeah.
At that
Yeah.
CSDA. Speaking of CSDA, you mentioned two things. Are you done with your update on
You could tell me that I'm done. Sure.
state legislative update? Okay.
He seems pretty anxious. You better let him go.
Yeah.
CSDA Senator, it's 2 p.m. On the 15th, next week, next Thursday at EID, if anyone is interested in honoring her. Rubbing elbows.
I appreciate you doing all this work, Director Dean. It's really good of you.
You're welcome.
Wait, can't you go on behalf of JPIA and then they
I-
cover your expenses?
Well, I could. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm going on behalf of CCWD and Mountain Counties. Speaking of which, state legislative work that Mountain Counties is doing and their ledge committee is phenomenal. Bryant Governmental Affairs, their lobbyist in Sacramento, it's listening to him is just an education of what's going on. I mean, it's Mia West and he knows so many people in the and he's put together, you know, there's hundreds of bills out there and they go through them and the ledge committee but just puts a lot of work. They're that ledge committee is well represented by AWA, TUD, and EID. Elizabeth, I mean, is the attorney that kind of helps out, does the legal beagle stuff. They are phenomenal. They run through these things, and I'd like to see if we can, if not someone else joining to help them, someone from our building joining to get educated on the state. You're well educated on the state Aqua board and on region and being involved with Region 3. You get a lot of stuff. And I don't know if it's Kelly that might be interested in state ledge stuff or
Yeah,
someone
I think
else,
that'd be great if
someone else to join that committee and just sit there.
or even just attend the meetings. We don't
Attend the
have to be
meetings.
on the
Yeah, I
committee.
mean, but
Yeah.
but I mean, you could, you know, if asked to do something and you're a part of the committee, you're not going to be given reports, or you jump in where you can. And they're so, and I know part of the things that they're doing is joining the car. They just had a meeting with the CARB. They got a CARB group too, and met with the board
Mhm.
at CARB, met with staff at CARB. I mean, 5 people from CARB staff were on this call listening. Not very well.
Yeah, and
They're not
I
very
think
good
Damon
listeners.
is on the Mountain County's CARB work group
Ye-
already.
yes, Damon is.
But I think having our staff attend those committee meetings would be.
The
really beneficial.
legislative, yeah, they just go through so many. I mean, you start with, you know, every bill. I mean, and they got them on a calendar. They're going to be a lot more active this year. We've just signed another contract or 6-month contracts with Bryant. It's Jason Bryant.
Yeah,
Sharp
He's-
dude.
He's great.
Yeah, no, I did, and he just knows so many people. He's been a chief of staff of somebody in the past, and
Well,
real
you
good.
have Tom there as well, who can provide his perspective.
Oh yeah, Tom comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, very. Yeah, no, he's a bundle of knowledge as well. Very. Anyway, I just want to throw that in there that Mountain Counties is doing bigger and better things, and will continue to be. We got a lot of programs going on this year, but that I had never until this year been involved with our ledge committee,
Mhm.
and to see how far advanced it is and where they're at and how deep they're going into this stuff is amazing. Impressive, I should say. That's all I had.
That was all I had.
Okay, anything on state or federal that you want to talk about? All right, general manager comments.
Well, I heard you refer to this gentleman as Kelly, but just so you know, he's now an outreach captain for Aqua Region 3 and is making everybody in the office call him captain. So
Captain?
yeah, you might want to
Okay,
just address
cap.
cap is
Okay.
okay. Okay.
I want to see a new hat. Where's, I wanna
Ooh,
get your
there's a good
captain,
idea.
captain hat.
It's
Okay.
on order. Supply chain
One that
issue.
has the,
The smaller bill on it, with a little anchor on the front. Yeah.
And yes, and we did committee reporting assignments and stuff like that yesterday. So for Region 3, so Director Adamman, you've been nominated again for local government committee, I believe. Damon will become the Water Management Committee reporter. I'll still be reporting out on Energy Committee, so CCWD will be well represented in those Region 3 board meetings. So I think that's a good thing. And then, man, so much going on that it's hard to narrow it down to just a few updates, but we are excited to have, we had very good luck with a round of recruitments for accounting staff. So, as you know, we have 2 vacant accounting positions right now, and we've filled them both. So we'll have people starting in those positions over the next month. They're staggered a little bit, a couple weeks, but we're starting to get those positions, get those positions filled and start training folks. So hopefully help is on the way. Staff's been really spread thin and covering everything, and people are stepping up and doing a great job, but we definitely need to get those seats filled. So we have a special board meeting tomorrow morning. And then I am out Thursday and Friday this week, and then we have our regular board meeting next Wednesday. And that is my update for now.
Director Davidson,
I have nothing to
comments,
comment on.
future agenda items? Okay, I have nothing to report myself. Next committee meeting, Tuesday, April 2nd, 1 p.m. And we're adjourned. Thank you.